Welcome csc103 class. I just wanted to review our dog soccer exercise if you missed this in class. Now if you come to Documents and Resources in My Warren, Documents and Resources, and this is under Handouts, there is a handout which is right here under Unit 2. As far as the link for the images, if you go back up to this one, you could just click on here. Now this is for the C1 class. It doesn't matter which class. But if you go up here, we're just going to use a dog and a soccer goal. So you'll see those here. We're going to use that dog, we're going to use that soccer goal, and we're going to use Photopea. So I'm going to go here and open up Photopea. And you could open them online, and that's what I'll do right now. So if you go here, we'll do the soccer goal first. Just click on it, and then right click and do copy image address, and then go back to Photopea, and then say File, Open from URL, and paste in the URL, Control V or Command V. I think just Control V will work even on, no it won't. On a Mac it's Command V. On Windows it'll be Control V. And keep it new project right now and hit OK. And there it is. And then I'm also going to go back here and I'll hit my back button and I'll open up the dog. I'll click on it. I'll right click again and I'll say copy image address. And I'll go back to Photopea and I'll do the same thing. Now one thing you just want to be aware of is when you open from URL, and I'll paste over this again. I'll do Command V because I'm on a Mac, but you do Control V on Windows. Make sure that you check. Now, I don't know why it did this in class too. You don't want this, even though it looked like I clicked on the right button. You don't want this open here. Let me try that again. I'm going to go File, Open from URL, and I'll paste. Now, you want to click on Current Project. I don't know why it didn't let me. I was clicking right there, but let me do it. Current Project, and I'll hit OK. And that's what should happen. You should have a second layer there, and it should be over top of background, and you should only have one tab open here. And you could resize this a little bit. You could grab on this corner, hold shift, resize it just a little bit. Not a whole lot. Keep the dog pretty big because we're going to edit this dog so he's silhouetted so you could see just the dog and then see the soccer goal behind there. And if you do scale this a little bit, just hit enter or return to OK that. Now what I'd like you to do next, since we have this real long URL here, is you can just save it. I'm just going to go File, Save as PSD. Now this will save to your downloads, and that's okay. It'll save the whole file as a PSD. And in class, I mentioned to turn on your extension so that you can see the 3-letter extension when you do that. You could do that on Windows by going to File Explorer Options to turn on your extensions. And you could also do that on a Mac and turn on extensions. But I want to save as PSD, and it'll download like that. And it went to my downloads. So I'm just going to go to my downloads where I am right now. There's my downloads, and you can see I have this real long file name. So you could rename this. On Windows you could rename. I could rename it here on a Mac as well. And I'll just call it For Dog Soccer, and I'll just put my last name on there. I'll just put dash, and I'll just put my last name. And then what I'll do, since I just renamed that and it's downloaded, it's on my computer right now, and we did that on our school computers. Now I'm going to go here and close this. And then I'll say open from computer, and then from downloads I'm going to open up that dog soccer file, and notice it has a .psd. And we have a layer where there's the dog. It still has a weird kind of name from when I brought it in. You could always rename that. And I have my background. And just be aware over here that I can turn the dog layer on and off with the little eyeball visibility, and same thing with the background. I could turn that on and off. And notice that when you target a layer, you click right on the name, and that targets that layer. And now I'm on this layer. So if I wanted to do something with this layer, I would do it on this by clicking here. And that's what I'm going to do first. And when I'm on that layer, first thing I'm going to do is go Layer, Rasterize. Because it actually saves it as what's called a smart layer, and we just want to make sure it's just pixels. You won't see anything happen, but just do that. So make sure you rasterize it, whether you did it before you saved it or after. Do that first. And then what we're going to do is use our lasso tool. Now we're not going to use the polygonal lasso. We could just use the regular lasso, and you could just draw around the dog real roughly. You don't have to, just make sure you don't cut off anything. Just go around the dog, just make him a little bit closer, but just a real rough kind of outline. You don't have to go in and out really close with detail. Just go around, and when you get to the beginning of where you started, just leave go of your mouse. And you should see a dotted line like that. So that dog is selected, just like we selected the teeth in the yellow teeth exercise. So the dog's selected, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here at the bottom, and I'm going to click on this thing that says Add Raster Mask, and that'll make a mask on that layer. And it looks like it deleted everything that wasn't selected, but what it actually did, if you look over here, it made a layer mask. And everything that is white is visible, and everything that's black is not visible. I don't know if I could look at the mask. Oh, there it is. I can. I held Option on a Mac, or you could hold Alt on Windows to click on that and see it. That's the mask. So black is hiding everything, white is revealing. So I'm going to Option click on this again. I had to Option click over here to bring it back. I'm going to click on this mask because we're going to work on this mask, and we're going to actually delete all the stuff around here. Now, one thing to point out here, if you have a gray color here, you could just double click on here and make it black. And if you have white color here, you want to make sure it's white. You could double click here and make sure it's white, and that's okay. Now, you want black and white here. Now, if these are switched, there's a little tiny arrow. I guess I'll hit OK. Actually, I want this. You want the top one black, so the top one should be black, and these might be down at the bottom too. Because my screen's a little bit lower resolution or a little bit bigger, it's putting this stuff up here. So I want this top one black, and I'll hit OK, and the bottom one white. Now, they may be at the bottom of your screen, and actually I'll hide these things. See, they may look like that if you don't have your downloads showing up. So here's black and white. Those are your foreground and background colors, and there's a little tiny arrow that you could flip. You can also use your X key to flip those colors. So I'm going to keep them so that black is on top, and I'm going to take my paintbrush, which is right here, and it's really hard on my computer to see it, but you should see a little circle. And I'll zoom into this, see if I could see my circle in here. For some reason on my laptop, the circle's really hard to see. It's right above his ear there. There it is. Now on your computer, it shouldn't be that hard to see. I don't know why it's like that on mine, but it's really has a really thin line. But anyway, that's the size. And I'm using my brackets next to the P on my keyboard. There's the left bracket and right bracket, or it's the curly brace, either one. And if you do on the left side, it makes it smaller. You can see it got a little smaller. And if I do the right bracket, it makes it a little bigger. And that's nice because you could resize your brush as you work. So you'd use a smaller brush, you know, for more detailed areas, and then you'd use a bigger brush for bigger areas. I'll zoom out just a little bit using Command minus or Control minus. Now, other than not being able to see my brush really good on my computer, when I did it in the computer lab at school, it was easy to see it on Windows, but for some reason, this is hard to see. Now, in addition to the size of the brush that you're working, if you go up here, there's also hardness. And you want to turn hardness down because you don't want it really hard edged. You want a softer edge because, for one thing, you're going around a dog which has fur. Plus, you also want to make it look more photorealistic when it goes into the background. So if it's really hard edged, it looks like it was cut out with scissors, and you don't want this. So we're going to turn it down to around 70 right now. And to make this little brush thing go away, you could just click up here. Now what we're going to do is paint with black. You can see I'm painting with my paintbrush. I'm using black because that's the foreground color, the top one. And I'm painting on my mask. So make sure you're on your mask over here. Make sure it has a little dotted line around it when you're painting. That means you're on your mask. If you paint on this, if you click here, you're going to paint black right on your image, and you don't want that. You want to paint black. And what I'm going to do is just start painting here. And I'm just going to go around here, and you could go around the dog first, or you could do bigger areas. Just keep going around. Now, I'm not going to do all of this because you don't want to watch me do it, but I'll go around all of this, and then if there's bigger areas, I could just make my brush bigger and start painting. And you want to do little bits at a time. You don't want to do a whole bunch because then if you have to undo, you just wasted all the time you did doing something. So you might want to zoom in a little closer. You say, well, how do I get up there around his head? Just hold the space bar. If you hold the space bar, you could kind of move this down. You could grab the whole, it's like a grabber tool. If you hold your space bar, you can move that, and then I could go in here and I could start working around the dog. So I'm going to go around here and just keep working around the dog. Now you can always make your brush even softer. You know, you could go in here if you want it even softer. You could even take this slider down a little bit, and it'll be a little softer around the edges as you do this. And I'll just keep going around my dog. Now for some reason, like I said, on my MacBook, it seems to have a real hard time showing the mouse for some reason, or the brush. I'm not sure why, but anyway, I'll keep going around here. Now, another thing you could do is you could turn off the background layer. Here's my soccer goal, so I'm turning that on and off. So if I zoom in here now, it might even be easier, and I'll hold my space bar again, might even be easier to go around here and erase parts. Now, the nice thing about this mask, we're not deleting permanently, because if I like get rid of his ear there, and I was like, oh man, I could go down here, I could hit my X key, or I could flip these colors. I could flip this down here, or hit my X key, and it'll flip these, and if I paint white, it'll bring it back, which is nice. Now it doesn't do it perfectly, but at least it brings it back, so I'm not actually deleting everything. And then I'll hit my X key again, and now I'll go in here and I'll erase more. And again, I'm not erasing. What I'm doing is I'm adding to the mask. You can see I'm painting on that mask, and I'm painting with black, which is hiding stuff. And you could do it in various levels of opacity. You can make your brush smaller as you work here and go into smaller areas and go around. And then you can kind of go around your whole dog here. And again, don't feel like you have to go around the whole dog. Just like end it. And then here I'm going to make my brush a little bigger, and then I'll just kind of clean up this area here because I don't have to do this as neat as I was doing when I was going around him. And again, the nice thing about this is you could go back and bring something back and erase it again as you do it. And again, space bar to grab, move over here. Here's a little piece I missed, and doing that. So I could go around here. So I could go around this whole thing here. I could hold space bar and go around his tail, you know, all that. I'm going to go around this whole dog and make my brush smaller. I'll make my brush smaller when I have to go into smaller areas. I can make it softer if he has more fur, he's more fuzzier. You know, I'm doing it really nice here around his tail, giving that little stubby tail there. And again, then when I'm done, I could go back over here and put on my background. So I'm going to go clean this up a little bit. So I'll pause and kind of finish this up. I'll zoom out, finish up what I'm doing here, and then I'll show you the next steps. Okay, I'm finishing this up here, and I'll put my soccer goal back on, and it looks pretty good. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. And then I'm going to take my arrow. Whenever you're done doing something, always go back to your arrow. It's called the move tool. But then I can grab this and move it around. You can grab it and move it around. If you ever need to scale it, which you probably will, you can go edit, free transform. You'll get this transform handle, and notice that it's going around the whole image because we have a mask there. We didn't delete pixels. If we deleted pixels, it would be tighter. But if I need to make this a little smaller, I could scale it in just a little bit. You don't have to make the dog, you know, actual size in front of a goal. You could let them real big. And whenever you scale them, you have to hit enter to make that little box go away. And then I'm going to go to image adjustments, levels, and I'll lighten up. Now, I did that on purpose because I don't see anything here. You should see a little mountain of pixels here to lighten and darken it, and I don't see it. And that's because, let me X out of here, because I'm still on the mask. Now, if I want to lighten the dog, I have to click on the dog. Remember, for editing, you know, hiding things, we use the mask. But now, if we want to edit the dog and change its color or anything like that, we want to go to image adjustments, levels. And now this is what it should look like. These are the dark pixels, mid pixels, and there's not many light pixels. So I could grab this and lighten up the dog and make him look brighter since he's outside in the sunshine. Grab the midtones, lighten it just a little bit. And that looks pretty good. The ball looks nice and bright. And I'll hit OK. You could adjust his warmness and coolness. Remember, we used photo filter on the other one, adjustments photo filter. So if you wanted to make him warmer looking or cooler looking, like we did with the teeth, you can make him cooler looking. And like that. I don't know if that would really help, but you could cool them down a little bit. Maybe just a little bit. And then one last thing I mentioned, after scaling them, moving them around here, you could go to layer style, and do a drop shadow. Now this is just a real basic thing. Now this is in the way here, so I have to move it. And you can see the drop shadow here. And I'm just going to turn the opacity down so it doesn't look so strong. You could adjust the, you know, where it goes, you know, where the shadow is, if it's behind him, in front of him, wherever you want to put it. I'll leave it behind just because it looks more normal behind. And I'll turn the opacity down so it's not so noticeable, because it doesn't look that good. It almost makes it more cut out sometimes if you do the shadow too dark on it. So I'll just do that a little bit, and I'll hit OK. And by the way, if you ever need to edit the shadow or even take it away if you don't like it, there's a little arrow here, and those are effects, and you could turn them off. So there's without the shadow, there's with the shadow. So it helps a little bit. And basically what we have is a composite image. We have a finished image that looks complete, but it's composed of 2 layers, and that's what a Photoshop file will do. Now, if you save this as a JPEG, it will no longer be on 2 layers. You won't be able to do this. That's why we're going to save 2 versions. So this isn't saving incrementally right now unless you're working on it from Google Drive. To save it, because I think we're okay right now, I'm just going to do File, Save as PSD. and it'll go in my downloads. And if you have a version already with that name, because we renamed it, it'll just get like a number 1 or 2 or something. And then also what I'm going to do is I'm going to do File, Export As, and save it as a JPEG. And what you can do, it's like 1200 pixels. Now we already saved the PSD, which you could open in here, and you could also open in Photoshop. I'm going to change this down to like 400 pixels just for the JPEG, because that's appropriate for photos. And I'll leave it at like 80%. Leave that at like 80%. And you don't have to change the height. It'll do it automatically. And I'll hit save, and that will also download. And now I downloaded both my PSD and my JPEG. And then when I go back here to my Warren, I'm going to go into coursework, and I'm going to go find my dog soccer assignment. Now I have one here already. I'm going to delete it because that's the one I did in class. But that's what it's going to look like. And when you go here, you could just hit Add Comment, hit the Insert Image button, hit this Folder button. Then in Moxie Manager, hit the Upload button. Go find it in your downloads. Here it is, the JPEG. Make sure you use the JPEG one. And if you don't see the extension, make sure you're looking here and you look for it. You might see something that says JPEG image. You might not see so there's my JPEG, and I'll hit Open. And I'll hit Insert. And there it is. And I'll hit OK. And it's highlighted right now, so you could click off it, and that's all you need to do. If you didn't resize it there, you could highlight and size it here. If it was really big, you could grab a corner and make it smaller, although this size is fine, so I'm not going to do anything with this. And you could just hit save, and there it is, and I'll be able to look at it and see that you did it and grade it for you. So that's all you have to do for this dog soccer assignment. You just have to upload the JPEG when you're finished.